Okay, there you go. Hey, thank you guys. Thanks for joining. And we are so happy that you're able to participate in our first, actually, first in a while, not the first, but the first annual conference for our PMI chapter. Again, I want to thank everybody that had a hand in putting this together. So, my topic is going to be on generative AI. And we have another speaker who's going to be in the afternoon. His topic is going to be understanding AI. And thinking about it, I'm thinking that he probably should have gone before me, because I'm going to be telling you some things that he's going to probably help clarify when he comes on. That's Kai Gray. So you want to make sure you're around when Kai talks about understanding AI. So Cindy, our first speaker, has already talked about AI and what you can do with Copilot. And I just want to extend that and just go a little bit beyond what Cindy has talked about so far. And we're talking about generative AI for project managers. And you see a lot of people talking about that subject right now, as far as generative AI is concerned. So we want to take some of the hype out of what generative AI is all about. We also want to make sure that you understand what's under the hood when it comes to generative AI. It's just like the internet. It's just like having our cell phones, right? They're mysterious if we don't understand it. They're mysterious if we don't know how it works. But once we understand it, we know that it's, as Lee Lambert said, Cindy said, she quoted him, it's just a tool, and we need to embrace that tool. So I want to show you how you can go about embracing generative AI for project management. So the first thing is understanding the fundamentals of generative AI, which is what I want to discuss a little bit. Learning how generative AI can extend beyond just mere content creation. Hopefully I can show that in this presentation. And then lastly, learning about key applications for generative AI in project management. So that's what we're going to cover. Those are the 3 points that we will cover in this presentation. So the first thing here is looking at traditional AI. Traditional AI typically analyzes and processes existing data, and it makes predictions or decisions about that data. That's traditional AI. But right after we got into traditional AI, boy, we just zoomed right into generative AI. I mean, it just came about so quickly. And I recall this because we got some people from our IIBA chapter in Michigan, Kathy and some others, who were part of this. When we hit COVID, we started looking at machine learning. We started looking at how we can get into big data and what big data was all about. And so we started doing a lot of things during that downtime. As far as COVID is concerned, we started looking at a lot of things. But we moved quickly from, in our understanding of traditional AI, we moved quickly into this process called generative AI and the capabilities of generative AI. So what we see here is generative AI goes beyond the traditional AI because it produces novel outputs, right? So what you're seeing is that production of these novel outputs. It mimics patterns and structures of the input data. And so we want to talk about that and what that means to a project manager. And then on the technical side here, if I may, and we don't want to get into too much detail on this, is that there are some advanced models, machine learning models, that really drive generative AI. And the two are generative adversarial networks, and the other one is variational autoencoders. These are known for generating high quality content. So when we talk about, looking under the hood, if we look under the hood of what's going on in generative AI, these two models are the machine learning models that drive generative AI. And I want to show you how these models will drive it, and we want to talk about what are some of the things that you can do with it. So the first one I talked about was the GAINS model, the generative adversarial networks. So in a nutshell, what it is, it's a neural network in the background, and it has a generator and a discriminator, and they go back and forth in a mechanical sense and a technical sense. They go back and forth until something that is produced as novel, right? So I know that's a little bit technical. Same thing with variational autoencoders. Just to let you know, these are the things, and I don't want to go into a whole lot of details. These are the things that are behind AI. You have machine learning models that are running in the background that are doing the things that have been trained to be able to take the information that you're putting in there, whether it's text, whether it's images, whether it's music, whether it's art, whatever that information is, it's taking that and it's actually going through and going through algorithms to help generate new novel things. So what does that mean to the project manager, right? So we know what's under the hood. These are a couple of terms you may want to keep in mind when it comes to generative AI, right? Now, so we can understand this. Generative AI is really not all AI. It's a subset of artificial intelligence. It's not artificial intelligence in its complete sense. It's a subset of it. So what generative AI does, it focuses in on being able to help create new content. New content is text, images, and music. And we're going to see a lot more. When you listen to the presentation today from Kai, you're going to see that there are a lot of new novel research that's going on. There's a lot of innovation that's going on that will allow you to do things that you couldn't do earlier without it, right? And so we want to see what tools are available to us and what tools can we use as a project manager. Like Cindy has already let the cat out of the bag in terms of some of the things that are happening with Planner and Copilot. But I want to give you a little bit more in terms of what you can do to get done with generative AI for a project manager. So generative AI doesn't really take anything new. It's based on data that it has been trained on. So that's a key point, is that the data that is being trained, that's what's going to help you to produce things that's going to be meaningful to you and your team and to your organization, text, images, and music. Right. So we want to look at that and how we can actually take advantage of that as a project manager. So generative AI extends beyond just mere content creation, which is what I said. So we look at it's particularly beneficial in scenarios where data is scarce or expensive to obtain. And what we're going to find out is that we can generate synthetic yet realistic data, which can improve the robustness and accuracy of our predictive models for project managers. What does that mean? Right. So what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to enhance our training data sets for machine learning models. And according to Gardner, by 2025, 60% of the data used for AI and analytics projects will be synthetically generated. Now, I heard something on the news just the other day, and I used to work for Westinghouse, and I used to work in a nuclear reactor division, and we had nuclear power plants back then, and they closed down the 3 Mile Island power plant. Right, they're getting ready to. They're in negotiations now to open that power plant. The interesting thing about opening that power plant, 3 Mile Island power plant, is that one of the big tech companies like Google or Apple, they want to buy the power plant to run their data centers. Can you imagine that? A nuclear power plant to run the data center so that it can generate those things that we depend on as far as AI is concerned. It takes that much power, right? But we're going to see in the future that 60% of the data used for AI and analytics is going to be generated from synthetically generated data. Okay, so how does that play out for you? All right, so I have a website called marathonfaith.com, and using generative AI, I was able to create the logo. Right, typically I would go to a designer and have them create the logo. I didn't let the generative AI finish the logo, but basically I sent it to my designer, and it saved a lot of time for him to take that logo and generate a logo that I can now use on my website. Then I started thinking about it. I said, well, what if I want to provide some kind of clothing, or what if I want to provide a clothing line for my nonprofit business? So I came up with some designs for track shoes, and then came up with some designs for track suits as well. All right, so playing with this, which took me minutes, maybe hours, as opposed to weeks and months, I was able to generate these ideas. And so these are the types of things that you can do with generative AI. Right. So I want to show you how you can go about doing that. So this is just one example of how we can go about using AI. So let's take a look at what I'm doing under the hood. So what I'm doing under the hood is I'm building AI models with WordPress, with a WordPress front end. That's basically what I'm doing. All right. I use AI, or artificial intelligence power plugins, for WordPress. Okay. So I use AI Power, which is a plugin for WordPress. I use a database that can be used to train that data. It's called a Pinecone vector database. In order for you to train a model, right, you have to have some type of vector database. And there are several that are out there. The one that I use behind the scenes is the Pinecone vector database. So basically what I'm telling you is that you do not have to rely on just Chat GPT. You can build your own GPT. And that's what I want to be able to show you. And I want to show you how I was able to train this model to be able to do some things as it relates to project management. And so with that, if you notice, if you've been following the trends for OpenAI, there are different types of models that are out there that are available. That's the GPT 4.0. It was GPT, I think there's three, version three. And then as far as the images are concerned, there's DALI. And there are other types of models that are being trained. These models are being trained, but they're being made available to the public to be able to do some unique things with them, right? And so what I'm going to show you here by looking under the hood is how I was able to create a knowledge base. And this knowledge base is my company called Bridges Academy, and it's proprietary content, right? And using that proprietary content to train that model so it can act like a GPT, like a chat GPT, but it's a GPT that's run for project management. It's what I trained it for. And I can train it for other things. I can train it for business analysis. I can train it for cybersecurity, right? With that application. So you can take models, you can take different data sets and train your models to be able to be specific for your domain. It's like having another subject matter expert, right? As a project manager or as a business analyst, you have to go to the SME, subject matter expert. So think of a GPT, think of a chat GPT, or maybe your own proprietary model as being your subject matter expert. That's where you're going to go to ask questions to get information. But you need to train that model on the types of information that you are the subject matter expert for, right? So being in project management several years, 20, 30, 40 years, right? I've learned a lot about project management. So that AI is not going to replace me. I'm training the AI model to be able to learn some of the things that I've already learned over the last 40 years being a project manager. Okay. All right. So with generative AI, what can you do? What are some of the things that you can do with generative AI? Well, we can create problem statements and vision statements. As a project manager, one of the things that you have to do in creating a project, coming up with a project plan, often we have to come up with a problem or vision statement. And I'm going to show you how you can use generative AI to help you to do that, how you can actually get to the point where you can take information. As Cindy had indicated, I think Cindy talked about uploading a PDF and asking questions about that PDF. You can take information that you have about your project, upload that information into a AI model, and then ask it to give you a problem statement and a vision statement. Is it going to be perfect? No, but you're the subject matter expert. What it's going to do is going to help you to jumpstart that process of being able to come up with that problem statement and vision statement, and maybe even give you ideas about the problem statement or vision statement that you didn't think about. Right? You can create a RACI. All of us as a project manager, we have to do RACI, right? What's a RACI, right? We create a responsibility matrix, a matrix that'll tell us who's responsible, who's accountable, who's consulted, and who has to be informed. A lot of times we have to go through and find out who our stakeholders are, and we create a RACI matrix. What if I have information about all my stakeholders and I know what titles they have, such as an engineer or HR manager, or they could be someone who's involved with IT, or they could be a architect, business architect, and I need a RACI model. I need something to be able to generate for my project, so I can create a RACI model by being able to ask the question. Once I've uploaded my information about that project, I can create that matrix, a RACI matrix. Solve complex scheduling problems. I actually had the opportunity to be able to do that just about a week ago. I have a team of people that I work with, and with that team of people, we work on Sundays, and we have two people each Sunday that work. And then on some cases, there are people who they have to have time off and they can't work on certain Sundays. So I put in the people that were part of the team, right? And I says, okay, these people can't work on this day. This person needs to be off on this day. We need to have two people. We want to give everybody at least 1 week off per week. I mean, so 1 week off per month. And I put it into my GPT, and I was able to come up with the schedule, right, and adjusting that schedule. Now, if I need to go back and adjust that schedule because maybe someone a commitment changed, I can go back. I don't have to redo it. I can go back and say, hey, this person is not going to be available that day. Rerun the schedule. So think of different types of scheduling problems that you run into, complex scheduling problems. You can do that with the GPT. There are often times where you might be faced with decision trees, decision tables, right? You have certain things. Let's say, for instance, a person is applying for a particular job, and there are certain criteria about whether that person is actually going to be able to get not a job, but maybe they're applying for something. It could be in a state agency or whatever, and there's certain criteria. You can build a decision tree that will help you to determine, what is the probability of a person having certain criteria being able to be approved for this next step, whatever that step might be. You can train new project managers. That's another thing that we can do with a generative AI model. We can produce business process models, right? Right now, you you can do it by hand, you can do it with Visio, but what about putting that information that you have about that process into an AI model to jumpstart that process of creating that business process model? It's not something that is coming in the future, it's something that we can do now. And the thing that I want to share with you, I think that's really exciting, is a PMP exam simulation model, something that I've created. I'm going to show you an example of that, right? And we're going to look under the hood as to how that works. And then create custom AI-driven forms. Here's a good place right now that I thought about in terms of forms. Let's say you're running a PMO office or you're running a project, and there's certain types of forms that you have people to fill out on a regular basis. The forms are static, right? The forms are very static. However, you can create an AI driven form and make that available and have that AI model working on the back end, helping people who are filling out that form to be able to create the output for that form using an AI driven form. There's lots of applications like that. In terms of, let's say, I know our speaker before, he was talking about resumes, or talking about a resume. Let's say you have a resume and you want to be able to change the emphasis of that resume for a certain job that you're trying to apply for, right? You can use that AI driven form to help you to create several different versions of that resume by putting in key information and letting it drive it that way. So those are some of the things that you can do already. They're not things that you might be able to do in the future. These are things that you can do right now. They're available to you now. All right. So here's the process. And if there's any questions, you can have the questions. You can let me know what those questions are. Upload PDF files. So one of the things you do with the BA, I'm calling it BA GPT, right? I had to give it another name. What that stands for is Bridges Academy GPT. So with Bridges Academy GPT, I'll upload a PDF, right? Whatever I'm looking at. I could have maybe a potential project. I'm a contractor and I'm bidding on a certain job, and they've given me the preliminary information about the job that I'm bidding on. I can upload that PDF. Then I can ask the BA GPT to produce a problem statement and a vision statement that will explain what's in that PDF. So now I have a problem statement and vision statement that I can use with my project charter. I can ask the BA GPT to provide a sample RACI for the project, right? I can ask that BA GPT to produce a sample project plan. If you want a project plan, you can do that. Cindy kind of showed that with Copilot. You can do that with Copilot as well. And so I'm not saying that you can't, you can, right? Give a BA GPT, and this is one that's interesting for those of you who have studied for the PMP certification. Remember that we had to learn the earned value management formulas, and the formulas were on the test. I think there's a little bit, they may be on there now, but they may have not, maybe not as elaborate as they were in the past. But let's say you're working on a project and you're dealing with earned value. There's a lot of government projects that actually you have to have expertise in earned value management. What if you can train your BA GPT to be able to help you, or train a GPT to help you to be able to come up with the earned value status, right? By plugging in that information. So there's lots of opportunities for that. And I just want to show you a few. I can't show you everything because there's so many things that I can demonstrate. I don't want to get bogged down into any details on some of that. So here's one of the examples. And I'm not going to do this live because sometimes live, you run into some technical difficulties. So I did this in advance. But you can input into GPT, right? Using earned value management. What if I put in GPT, my earned value is 30, whatever that number is, 30 million, 30,000, whatever. My PV is 20,000, and my AC is 100,000, right? Calculate other earned value parameters. That's all I told the GPT to do for me. So I got earned value, I got PV, planned value, and I got actual cost, right? So it did the calculations. I'm not showing you all the calculations here. It took those calculations and it calculated for me all the earned value calculations that I would need in order to determine where this project stands at this particular moment, right? And so, as a project manager, sometimes you have to determine whether you're on schedule, behind schedule, under budget, over budget, and earned value is the way that you do that, right? And so, we learned that becoming a PMP. So basically, the output for this basically said that, and I'm not showing you numbers here, it calculated that my schedule performance index was 1.5. So it's greater than one, which indicates that my project is progressing well in terms of schedule. But my cost performance index was zero point 0.3. So a CPI less than one indicates that the project is not cost efficient. So the conclusions, and this is a conclusion that the model gave coming back, it says these calculations suggest that while your project is ahead of schedule, is significantly over budget, it might be a good idea to investigate the reasons for the cost overrun and see if there are any adjustments that can be made to bring the project back on track financially. And then the GPT says, if you need further assistance or strategies to address these issues, please feel free to ask. My point on this, and I think Cindy mentioned this earlier in her presentation, is that these calculations that sometimes you don't necessarily want to deal with, you know them, but you don't necessarily want to deal with it. You might be able to put that into some form of a chat GPT. And the other thing is you can do, you can create a form where you might have your project manager inputting this type of information and then them getting the information back. Another thing that you can do with this is if you're learning earned value, this is a good way to help you. If you're a student and you're trying to get your PMP, and this is something that's important to you and you're not sure exactly how it works, you can actually use that to help train yourself and become more efficient in being able to do earned value management. So, how to prepare for AI in project management? How should you, if you're a project manager, how should you prepare yourself? How should industries prepare you? How should your organization prepare you for project management? Here's some of the AI in project management. Here's some of the keys that I think are going to be valuable to you. And if there's any questions, guys, you can always interrupt me and let me know what those questions are. So, one is that there has to be a significant investment in the talent development as far as AI is concerned. This was one statistic that I see here: address the talent gap. So, what we see is that 54% of the companies reported lack of skilled talent as significant barriers to AI adoption, according to PricewaterhouseCoopers. All right. So there is a talent gap, right? There are people who are sitting on the sideline waiting to see how this thing is going to go. Where is it going to go? Is it going to impact me? Let's just say this: it's already impacting you. You don't have a choice. You're going to have to get involved, right? And get involved and learn and embrace it, right? When the internet was coming along, when other technologies came along that were shifting how we look at things, their paradigm shifts, right? We have to embrace this paradigm shift. And then how we go about doing that, this came about in the agile environment. And that is, we need to foster a culture of continuous learning. And so you need to learn about AI and how AI is going to help you and go beyond just the boundaries of what is being said, what you can and can't do. Go beyond that and continue to learn about how these things or how these tools can be applied to what you're doing. You're the subject matter expert in your area. I'm not a subject matter expert in construction business. I'm not a subject matter expert in the banking industry. I'm not a subject matter expert in retail sales. Right? You're the subject matter expert. There's a lot that you know. There's a lot of knowledge and information that you have that you've built over the years, whether 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, but you have to be in a position to learn. And I think that was a good statistic that Cindy talked about. And that is, if you want to learn something, you want to be able to change something. And I don't know exactly how she quoted it, but you need to spend about 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day. That's all it takes to be able to change. So learn something new about AI. Learn what you can do with AI as it relates to project management. And then provide technical training. A lot of organizations are starting to provide technical training and address apprehensions or resistance to change. A lot of times we don't change because there is a resistance to that change. And so we want to be the type of person that is not going to resist it, but we're going to embrace that change. All right. So, what are some of the challenges and solutions to that? And if there's, I'm going to ask this question, and you all can put this in chat for me. Let's just take a little moment. If you have, what are some of the challenges that you're facing? And maybe you can pose that question in the question and answers. Let's see what comes back. What are some of the challenges you're facing as it relates to AI? So some of the things that I see here is that challenge, there's a steep learning curve, right? So there has to be a way of being able to have some comprehensive training in regards to AI. It might be integration with existing systems. Now that I thought was going to be a big problem, but I'm telling you, it is moving at an exponential pace. How fast organizations are being able to integrate AI into existing systems, right? But if you're having a challenge maybe in your own organization, then you might want to do a phase implementation starting with non-critical tasks when it comes to AI. How about data privacy and security, right? Adopting the best practice in data security. There are ways to get around the data security. People talk about the fact that if you put things in chat GPT, then it's out there and it's available for everybody. That's a myth, right? And what you want to do, there are ways that you can get around that. There are ways that you need to put in practice to be able to avoid that. A lot of state agencies, federal agencies have been very slow and very cautious about people using chat GPT, but they're realizing now that there's ways that they can protect that data. And I'll tell you some of those keys as to how you can do about doing that. And then challenging bias in the AI generated outcome. That's something that we all are going to have to learn how to embrace. But if you're the one training the model, if you're the one that's behind the model, you can train it to be unbiased based on what your preferences are. So you're not stuck with having a model that's trained that's biased in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So we have to ensure that our models that we train, we have to deal with that and make sure that they're trained, they're unbiased in the data, and then also we need to have regular audits when it comes to the models that we use to make sure those models that we use are not biased. Are there any questions? I'll pause a minute. Are there any questions so far? One of the moderators, you're still there?
We're still here. No question. Wait, hang on.
Okay.
We go got a question from Christine.
Okay.
Oh, not a question, just a comment. As an educator about the issue of using Chat GPT and some others to write papers.
Okay. All right, Christine.
Some
Hopefully,
experiences that Christine has run into, and
okay.
warning students against using the Chat GPT as
Yes. And here's where I'm trying to get everyone to shift, and that is to make this shift from a generalized chat GPT to something that you create and something that you develop so that as a teacher or a trainer, you can train your AI model to interact with your students. All right. You don't want to hold students back. They're going to learn how to do it, right? You can't stop them from doing it. What you need to do is be able to help them to be able to utilize that tool, right? So a person who don't understand the subject matter can use ChatGPT to come up with an answer, but if they don't understand the subject, they're not. They're just going to use what's coming out of ChatGPT, right? You're a project manager. You know something about project management. You're the subject matter expert. You can look at it and determine whether this is good stuff or not good stuff. Okay. But by training your model, having taken control of your models, then you're able to take out some of that biased information or some of that information that's really not relevant to what you're working on, and being able to train the model to be more specific. I'll tell you more about that in just a moment. Hopefully that clarifies something. I really want to make sure everybody understands this. If you go to Chat GPT, and I'm getting ahead of myself, you go to Chat GPT, there's what we call Chat GPT Plus, right? Chat GPT Plus, you can put your own information out there. You're not going out to the internet. You're not going out to the regular Chat GPT data model. You're training your model to be able to take your proprietary information. And then when you run the queries, it's going to be based on your proprietary information. The same thing is true with Copilot. You can do the same thing with Copilot. You can buy a paid version of Copilot, So the beauty of that is that if you own a company or you work in a company, you can take away the fears of your leadership and your management by saying that we're training this model based on our proprietary information that's not available to anybody else, right? Companies are doing that. I just talked to a lady last night, worked for one of the biggest project management consulting firms in the world, right? They're doing that now with Chat GPT Plus, right? They're training that model for their consulting company because they have project managers that are all over the world, and they want their project managers to be able to utilize something that's going to be beneficial to them. So some of the things which have been hinted on already, and I'll go here, just continue to ask questions you have. Automating routine tasks. We can see that minute taking, scheduling. We can see that real-time language translation for global teams, right? You're working with someone in a different country and they send you a message in Arabic or they send you a message in Spanish or French or whatever. You want real time language translation. AI can help you with that. AI powered brainstorming session. We actually did that with one of our planning meetings this past weekend with our chapter board members. You know, we were looking at what we're going to do for next year, and so we asked for some ideas, right? And that was something that came out in the global summit for PMI. They said, hey, when you're working with your team, whether you're working with, I know we got some people from the IIBA that's on with us. If you're working with your board, do an AI powered brainstorming session, right? To generate new ideas, novel ideas, things that the team can work on, right? That's your additional subject matter expert that's in the room. If we think of it that way, then we can start utilizing it. Personalized reminders and motivational messages. I don't think we can improve on what Copilot is doing for us. So Copilot is going to be is going to be integrated already in everything we do in Microsoft. So get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready. It's already there. All right. And then robust data analysis and reporting. We haven't even touched the surface on robust data analysis and reporting, but for those of you who do data analytics, there's a lot of good things that you can do with an AI model. All right. Here's some trends and predictions. We'll be able to automate routine tasks, which we already know about. Enhance creative capabilities. I kind of showed you an example of how I created a logo and a clothing line. Adding in decision making with comprehensive data analysis. We have a decision tree. We have lots of things that we need to make a decision on. We allow the model to help us to come up with a good data analysis to help us make good decisions. And then we need to shift in skills and mindsets for the project manager. So we need to make a shift. We need to make a shift of how we're doing things. I had this conversation with another person. I don't know if it was Kai, but it was another person that's heavily involved in AI. And here's what we came away with. Okay, as a project manager or any type of skilled person, right, trying to do something, AI possibly can get you about 80% of where you need to be. Okay. So I'm creating a project plan. I'm creating a project schedule. I'm creating something in AI. I might be creating a detailed project plan that's going to be used for a large scale project, right? I can spend 3 months on it. I can spend a month on it, but why not use a tool that's going to get me 80% of where I need to be? The other 20% is going to have to come from me. Other 20% is going to have to come from you. So you're just using a tool to help you to get farther along in the process of creating a deliverable so you can modify that deliverable and be able to create what it is you need to create. Future potentials and boundless opportunities exist as far as AI is concerned. And when you listen to Kai's presentation later on today, you're going to see that there are a ton of things that are happening right now that we don't even have time to talk about at this point. We don't have enough time in the day to talk about it. All right, so here's a question that I have, and I'm going to pose this question here. How can project managers effectively address the challenges of data privacy, potential biases, and ethical considerations when integrating generative AI into their workflows? Okay, anybody got any answers on that? Just comments. You don't have to. I'm not looking for a right answer. There's no right answer. I just want to get your feedback. What can you do as a project manager to make sure data privacy takes place, challenges, ethical considerations? What can you do? Let me know if there's any questions popping up there.
I don't see any. Oh, one just pops up.
Okay.
notifying that the chat is disabled. Okay, so we have an anonymous attendee. It says you have to control the data feeding model. I believe that's a question. There's no question.
Okay. But is that a question? Tamika?
I believe so. There's no question mark, but I believe that it was meant to be a question. Do you have
Okay, it says
the data
you have to control the data feeding the model. Yes, you do. Okay. That's so the answer to this question: how can project managers effectively address the challenge of data privacy? Yes, you control the data that's feeding the model. So you have to have, as a project manager, you have to evaluate the data and make sure that it is accurate data. Make sure that it is data that you can rely on. So yes, everything that's being fed into that machine learning process, you have to control it. You have to inspect it. You have to audit it. You might go on. Let's say, for instance, you have an organization and they have a GPT that they've set up. You might go in and ask it a question that you know is not you know the answer to the question, so you're actually doing an audit to see how it's going to come back, right? And so you need to do some evaluation of the output, and that's okay. We do that on a regular basis, okay? So we need to do that. All right. Privacy, we just need to make sure that the IT people are putting in place those things that are necessary for privacy. Let me move on here from this question. So in summary, right? And I'm going to ask the question, but I'm going to give you the answer too. What is generative AI? One, it's a technology that generates new content based on learned patterns. That's the answer. Generative AI is a technology that generates new. How can project managers utilize generative AI in their projects? Well, by automating routine tasks, risk assessments, and resource allocations. Next, what are the risks associated with using generative AI in project management? Well, it depends on we just mentioned that it depends on the quality of the data, the risk of the bias, and then over reliance on AI tools. And just recognize that it is AI tools. These are tools, not necessarily they're not an end all as far as AI is concerned. Michael Carey says, is there a concern of having other automated tools that audit the data, AI data? That's a good question, Michael. Automated tools that audit the AI data. I don't know if there's a concern. I think we all need to be aware of how perhaps tools can be used to audit us and audit our data. But if we're auditing it, we should welcome tools that's going to help us to determine if there's any type of issues or problems with our data. So I don't think we need to shun it. I think we need to welcome that. And I think what you're saying is that there may be automated tools, and that's very possible, right? But what we're trying to do is we're trying to get to something that's going to be truthful. We're trying to get to something that's going to be realistic and something that's going to be of value to our stakeholders and our end users. Are there any other questions? Thank you, Michael. All right, generative AI. Let's look at some examples of generative AI before I close out here. All right, so here's one. Here's an example here, and this goes back to one. I'm going to just say, here is the project scope, right? This is a case study overview of a green supermarket chain focusing on the need to provide clear product information and meet the dietary needs of its health conscious customers. All right. So with that, this is just a summary, and I actually used the PDF, uploaded the case study to the PDF, and I asked it to produce the project scope. This is a project scope that came from the BA GPT, right? This is the problem statement that was generated from that. And this was uploaded. Now, when I say uploaded PDF, you're given, let's say, for instance, you're giving a project and perhaps there is a problem statement. Perhaps there's some historical information about this project that you need to do. You put it in a PDF form, and then you start to use that PDF to help you to determine these things that I'm showing you here. Perhaps there was a preliminary study that was done, right? You take that, you put it in a PDF, you upload it to your GPT, and then you start to ask that GPT for these things. So this is the answer. When I asked it for a problem statement, this is the answer that it gave. Greenmark faces a challenge with unclear nutritional information and product content. And this document that I had was like a 2-page detailed document about the problem, the issues, the goals and objectives and things like that. So I just asked it to give me a clear problem statement. So this is the problem statement that's addressed here. It talks about what the problem is, but it goes on to say this solution aims to, well, first of all, it says to address this, Greenmark needs a comprehensive user-friendly app that offers detailed product information, personalized recommendations, and an easy store navigation. This solution aims to enhance customer satisfaction and loyalty, ultimately boosting sales and positioning Greenmark as a leader in health-conscious retailing. So that's the problem statement that was created by the GPT. I also asked it to give me some user stories based on the information that I loaded. So it came back with these user stories, right? As a user, I want to create and manage my profile so that I can set my dietary preference, allergies, and health goals. I also said, as a user, I want to scan a product barcode so I can view detailed nutritional facts, ingredients, allergens, warnings, and dietary suitability, right? So I ask it for user stories. I ask it to give me some functional requirements. Now, I'm a PMI, I'm a PMP, but I also have the PMI PBA. So I'm also a PMI business analyst as well. And a lot of things we deal with when we talk to business analysis is user stories and functional requirements. So it gave me, here's a couple of examples that it gave me for the functional requirements: user registration and profile management. The system must provide an interface for users to register, log in, manage their profiles. Users should be able to input and update their dietary preferences and health goals. And then it gave me another functional requirement as well. Right. So those are some of the things that you can do with the GPT if it's designed and set up properly. The last thing I want to show you here, and this is probably needs to be refined a lot more, but I'll show it to you anyway. But I ask it to give me a potential AI generated UIX design. And so this is the AI generated UIX design. I'm not pleased with it because it has lots of spelling errors and issues in it, but it gave me a concept or an idea of what can be used to generate an app or the screens for that app. Right. So it gave me some of those things that I can utilize to help generate this. Right. So with that, you can play around with this. If you got the right GPT model, it can help you to start to generate AI type UIX designs that you can pass on to your developers. Okay. So that's another thing that you can do with AI. Okay. At this point, are there any questions there? Questions that you might have? Okay, don't be afraid.
Looks like we're good, George.
All right, I don't want anybody to be afraid to ask me questions. I'm not trying to, hopefully I'm not too deep with this. I'll pause for a little more and see what we have here. All right, since you guys are not asking any questions, I'll show you something, and I'm gonna go out on a limb to show it to you here, and we'll do this. So let's say you're going to be training to take the PMP exam, and you want to be able to test yourself on it. And this was something that I thought was very valuable, and that is I've come across a lot of exam simulators, and some of them, I mean, based on, there were some times when you had paper exam simulators. There were times when you had exam simulators with so many questions in it. But I thought what it would be like to have a exam simulator that had an unlimited number of questions, so that you don't see the same questions over and over again when you start to practice for the PMP exam. And so I created an exam simulator using an AI model. And so that's available on my site now. And if you go on my site here, is bridgesconsultinc.com, put in 2024-PMI-EC and use the code ECPMI 2024. And so you're going to have to use that code because it's not going to be available to you unless you open up that code. So if you use that code, then you can actually go into that model and start to ask various questions in regards to what you might want to do. And I'll show you this if I can do that real quickly. How are we doing on time, Tamika?
We are good. We have about maybe another 5 minutes, I think.
Okay. So that gives me enough time to see if I can open up this model here and show it to you. If you
Sure.
guys would give me the opportunity to do that so you can see it in practice here.
And we have another question.
Okay.
You ready to answer the question?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I
All
can
right,
answer.
great. All right, so we have Evan Reynolds. What were some of the educational resources you utilized to develop your knowledge on generative AI?
That's a real good question.
Can you say it in 5 minutes or less? It's okay.
That's a real good question, and I would say that it's been a lot. My background is IT, and I would say that starting to experiment with AI. I didn't go to any class or any type of training class. It was basically experimental. But as a trainer and as a trainer in different things, project management, and business analysis, I started looking into machine learning, and then from that machine learning, just start going out and starting to do things. I have an advanced degree in IT, and one of the things that one of our professors told us was that you always want to teach yourself new things when it comes to being able to develop and train yourself on certain things. So I think Tamika has an interesting story in terms of what she was able to do as far as the PMP is concerned. And that was she went out and she found all the available resources on YouTube and started to watch those things. So YouTube, books, reading books, understanding it, just getting involved and just going through and practicing and learning things. So it didn't come about in the traditional way because I wasn't going to go back to school on some of these things. So I basically said, okay, I'll teach myself on how to do some of these things, and that's what I did. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen with you here, and I'm going to try to share this one where. Okay. Nope, that's not the one there. All right. All right, so I'm on my page, and I'll just share it with you. I'm not going to put in anything new on this, but let's see. I'll go back to that. Let me just share the site that you're going to go to, but you're going to use that link that I just shared with you, and I'm going to go to the first one here. It's called BAGPT, and let me just share the screen real quickly for you here. And here's the screen here, and I'll just share it with you now. All right, so if you go to this screen here, you don't have, if you put that link in, you won't have to go to that screen, but I'm doing this for sake of time. And that if you notice here, you have BAGPT right there, and then I just click on BAGPT, and it brings up the model. All right, so somebody give me a question. I have some pre questions that are already in there. So if I were to click on one of these questions here, it's going to give me the answer to that question. I think I want to back out of this for just a moment. But everybody see the GPT there?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So what is the benefit of using Scrum? Let's say I want to know about Scrum. What's the benefit of using Scrum? And I'm just doing this for the sake of time. Just click on that, and it's going to come back with an audible answer as well as a textual answer, right? And the thing here, as far as training, if you look at the back end of my WordPress document, the back end of my WordPress document has been trained on data sets and things that I brought in, papers, things that I've written in the past, relevant information is being trained on that. So notice here, it says Scrum as a framework within agile methodologies offers several benefits that can significantly enhance project management and team performance. Here are some of the key advantages, and it goes through and gives you all the advantages of Scrum. I want to back out of this real quickly, and then I want to come back in the share as far as the share is concerned, because I want to show you something that I want to do here as far as a share. Let me bring this up as a share, but I'm going to bring in the actual. Okay, let's go here.
Agile project management is a dynamic and flexible approach to managing projects, particularly well suited for environments that require adaptability and quick responses to change. Unlike traditional project management methods, which often follow a linear and sequential process, Agile emphasizes an iterative and incremental approach. Here are some key aspects of Agile in project management. 1. Flexibility and adaptability. You have reached your token limit.
Okay, I think I'm done. All right, guys. Any comments or feedback? All right.